they're too tight.
Okay. I'll take your jacket.
So I'm going to give it back. Hand it.
Okay.
I'm going to give all the stuff back. Don't mind.
Keep the trousers on. Remember what happened in Toronto.
Maybe in an hour's time. I know this film is a passion project, and you spent a long time trying to bring it to the screen. And I know part of it is because of your background, that you have a very colorful family. So could you talk a little bit about how much of a personal project it is?
Sure. Yeah, colourful. Yeah, I mean, a little bit colourful. So I come from New Zealand, and my father's side, Māori, which is the indigenous peoples of the ground kingdom of New Zealand, and my mother's side, they're Russian Jews who escaped the pogroms in the early 1900s and ended up, of all places, in New Zealand. And so, growing up, I had a very sort of mixed cultural experience, and two cultures who are both very heavily oppressed, but also great senses of humour. And so I think I've tried to bring a lot of that into just the style that I've always used in my films, and that kind of sort of the outlook on life to my films, and just really I love films that are set in quite dark environments, but finding finding the light in those dark places.
One of the things I was really curious about was your inspiration. So I see a lot of Mel Brooks in there, not just producers, but also To Be or Not To Be. So I see a little bit of Ernst Lubitsch, and I see some vaudeville, especially that Heil Hitler shtick. It's just fabulous. So can you talk a little bit about how any of that influenced when you were making, or at least staging scenes and set pieces?
I have a very big confession to make to all of you guys. I haven't seen those films.
That's fair.
I know no, just turned on. I haven't actually seen that film, but I've seen Great Dictator, and I've seen a lot of films that didn't necessarily have Hitler in them. But Strangelove, I think you can probably see as it's been an influence on this. And I think there's comedies where we poke fun at dictators and at people in power, and try and do it in a smart way, as opposed to let's smoke a bomb and talk stuff in a movie. It's not my style, but I want it to be more kind of more of a discussion. I'm not good at this.
I think you're doing fine. I'll ask a question to Stephen.
Sorry. This has gone terribly.
Oh, so there are chairs then? We don't have to stand up.
There are, but they're broken. They're very Austin directed chairs. That's how you work the camera when you make movies over in Austin.
I'll let Richard Linklater know.
Who? Back in a minute.
I wouldn't like to be Linklater about now.
No, in your face, Linklater.
Stephen, can we
Yes,
talk a
go
little
on,
bit
another
about
question, yes.
How you got involved with the project? Was it you play a very interesting character?
Yes.
He's both a source of fear, but also someone who's quite laughable in his fanaticism. And how did you get involved? How did you approach the character?
Yes, Stephen.
Well, thanks for asking. I have been a fan of Taika's, but had never met him. And someone said, Taika needs someone to play a Nazi, and they want you to do it. And I thought, finally, the call has come. because I've long thought that I would be a shoo-in for a kind of Gestapo officer, being tall and the whitest man alive. Unlike him, I have no colourful background. I don't think my relatives have even left our neighbourhood. So I just thought it was just so exciting, the idea of kind of Taika, me playing a Gestapo officer. And unlike Taika, I had seen a lot of the films you mentioned, those Lubitsch films and the other stuff. Yeah, I've watched movies.
I don't like watching other people's films. I'm an auteur, so I don't want to be influenced by shit.
And so I thought it,
one shoe back on.
I thought it very much tapped into that long history that you'd said, and I thought I'd like to be a piece of this, and here I am. And does that answer a question? Not
Yeah,
really.
yeah. I don't think we've answered any of your questions, and you also haven't answered the question twice, as you said you were going to.
Well, I'm talking into the mic, so it only needs to be said when it's being said into the mic.
I don't understand these rules.
You specifically said I have to ask the thing twice.
When the audience member asks a question,
the audience.
I have to repeat it.
I get it.
If you're sure, I'm going to let him ask a question.
Well, we've done great so far.
Okay,
Your
great.
ones, so.
Any
Let's see how this
questions from
goes.
the room? Let's start there.
Well, hang on a minute. There's so many of them. So many hands went up. There was one. Oh, Tom.
You see, so you didn't get it.
I was about to
Repeat
say.
the
I was
question.
about to repeat to them because I'm used to this. Because this is not my first Q&A
Oh, great.
rodeo.
Okay.
Really? It seems like it is.
So the question was, when did we get Thompson McKenzie involved, who's the brilliant actress who plays the character of Elsa? You should say it again too.
I think they've heard it enough
Okay,
times.
good. Yeah. There's no other movies after this, right? We've got a lot of time.
Shutting down the...
Thomason, she was one of the first people to audition and was already instantly on the shortlist. And I guess maybe just out of this thinking that I should look at other people, I decided to look at other people. But I think Kathy and I already knew that we wanted her from the beginning. She's her family, sort of theatre royalty in New Zealand. So her mother is a friend of mine, and her father's a friend of mine, and that's why I grew up in the theatre scene with her parents in New Zealand, and such a theatre scene, and but so I've known Thomason since she was very young, and she's become the most incredible actor.
Right there.
Thank God, one more.
How did you get ready to be Hitler? Did you watch a lot of videos, listen to speeches, or did you just kind of wing it before you even get method with it?
Go on.
I'll take this one.
Yeah.
So I think what you're asking is how I prepared for the role of Hitler, and I think the question beneath your question is, did I watch a lot of videos and did I do a lot of research? No. No, I didn't do any really, because he's conjured from the mind of a 10-year-old who knows nothing about the world. I wanted this version of Hitler to be exactly the same. He had to know nothing. He had to be an idiot. More of an idiot than he was, and I wanted to have that sort of 10-year-old quality, and I just didn't. Also, I'm not comfortable. Got the idea of going method. I mean, also wrong guy to go method with. But
You'd have to cut off a ball. Become a vegetarian.
Oh God, evil. No, people are like, oh, did you keep the moustache? What? Who would ever keep that moustache on and walk around town? But you have to make it a movie. Cut the moustache. I mean, it was bad enough. I mean, look at this hair. Look at that. I had to have it straightened. And for all those people out there who've had their hair straightened, I'm with you. I feel your pain. It's not a nice process.
This is a fascinating insight into the filmmaking process.
In the days off, I look like someone who was going through a real midlife crisis, and I was. And I looked like I was someone just really trying to be cool, with straight hair. I got lots of really cool stories like this. Want to hear any more? I didn't do any research. I didn't like the guy, and I didn't want to really give him that honour.
Let's take another one. There's one right there.
In approaching a movie about World War II, the Holocaust, and it's also a comedy, I found it genuinely moving and touching and also funny at the same time. And I was curious kind of how you approach that just on a general thematic level.
Well, I was always fascinated.
Wait. The question was. Thank you. The gentleman had seen the film, he'd enjoyed the film. You had juggled very serious themes with comedy, and you'd made it very moving, and he was wondering how you'd approach that particular style. On you go.
Thank you. So I think what you're trying to ask is... So, I grew up watching a lot of World War II films, and I was obsessed with that particular war, which I think, like people my age, like that's the war that was the coolest war. But because I think the lines were very clear between good and bad, and I've always have had this infatuation with it, and so watching all these movies throughout the years that dealt with this thing, they were very, very dramatic movies, and there weren't very many. The style of telling these stories didn't really vary that much, and just knowing my own style, I don't think I don't think I'll be very good at making just a straight drama. I just don't want to turn up to work and be depressed all the time, and I wouldn't want to do like a straight comedy because that's inappropriate. But so I feel like in telling these stories again and again, then we have to, because there was a reason that they said, let's never forget what happened, and it seems kind of weirdly that we are forgetting that stuff, and so I do think it's important that we keep telling these stories again and again, and especially that story, and I think you have to retell it in interesting new ways, and I object to this idea of it being it's a comedy about World War II. It's not. It's a story about World War II with some jokes. And, I think if that's a way, an access point for audiences, and also for younger audiences, to be pulled into the story and to start this dialogue and to understand what happened, then so be it. We have to keep finding new and inventive ways of keeping the story going.
Yeah.
We'll take one more. Right there, and then we'll take that one behind you.
Can you tell us a little bit about working with such young actors and getting the incredible performances that you got out of those actors?
Can you tell us a bit about working with those young actors and how you got such incredible performances from them?
Yeah, kids, the worst. There's a reason they have that saying about kids and animals, because they're the same. With casting those kids, Roman, he came in right towards the end of the casting process, and I think we were a little bit worried that if we would find someone who was right for that part. And usually when I cast children in a film, I just look for someone who resembles as close as possible the character that I've written. Or if I find someone I love, then I'll change the character to suit the person I've cast. I don't want to ever ask a kid to pretend to be someone else, because it's too much. And it's, when you talk with adult grown-up actors, they kind of overcomplicate things a lot. I'm going to put on this funny accent, and that's acting. I'm going to put on these funny teeth, and that's acting. It's not. It's just you're bored of pretending. And so with kids, though, I think you get the purest performances when you just let them be themselves and they just learn the words. And Roman really embodied the sensitivity that I was looking for in this kid, Thomason as well. yeah, so but once you do that, then it's sort of smooth sailing after that, really. Like I think 80% of the work with kids is casting them. It's finding the kid.
And then there was one question. Right, yeah.
I love the symbolism of the butterfly that you used. Was there any meaning behind that, or any like special ties you had to said butterfly?
I love the symbolism of the butterfly in the movie. I just wondered if there was any significance to that. If you could expand on your thoughts on using the butterfly. My natural instinct is, of course, to remember the classic First World War anti-war drama, All Quiet on the Western Front. Is that in any way?
You got it!
Is that a reference to
You
that?
got the reference! That is the reference. That is the reference. All Quiet on the Western Front, which is one of the first, if not the first, anti-war film.
Absolutely.
And it's absolutely beautiful. And he's reaching out of his foxhole, he's reaching out, trying to get that little butterfly at the end. And then only shot, you remember the shot? It's just the hand, near the butterfly, and then you hit it. And this hand goes,
Spoiler!
It's the end of the film.
That film only came out in 1931. People may not have seen it yet.
Spoiler alert, the Germans lost that one too. Yeah, so that is the significance of that. Also, butterflies are lovely, aren't they?
So before we end, I saw that JOJO gave t-shirts to everyone, and I was wondering if you guys would put them on so Taika